The Detroit Lions just got linked to an amazing offensive coordinator change. Today, Lions fans, we're going to break it down. My name is Colin. Together, we are the NFC North Guys, breaking down content every single day regarding the Lions, the Bears, the Vikings, and the Packers. But of course, today we're breaking down our Detroit Lions. The first thing I want to get into, just to bring everyone up to speed, a couple days ago on Tuesday, the 6th, the Lions fired John Morton, which I just have to be objectively honest. I didn't think John Morton was the only issue with the offense this year. And I think you could agree with me if you're watching the games, if you're watching this offense go, you realize games against teams like the Eagles weren't really maybe an offensive coordinator issue. They were more of a offensive line issue. Now, do you point the finger at Hank Fraley for that? No, I think you point the finger at injuries, at age, at a lack of even just some talent right there on the line with maybe some consistency. We know we had the hope of the Ragnows and Decker was dealing with some issues and Penny was dealing with some issues, and we brought in a rookie, and there's a lot to talk about with this offensive room as a whole. But from my objective, maybe it's a subjective perspective, but for me, I think the Lions have everything they need to be an incredible offense. Now, John Morton, call him a scapegoat, call him whatever you want. The Lions weren't reaching the ceiling that they had with Ben Johnson with John Morton, so they're going out, they're looking for a new guy, they're looking for a high-profile hire. We know that Mike McDaniel was recently fired from the Dolphins, but 12 hours after he was fired from the Dolphins, we get this from Ian Rappaport that the Lions have, in fact, reached out to Mike McDaniel and are already talking to him about the offensive coordinator position. Now, there's a lot to say about this. Again, I look back at when the 49ers were losing a couple coordinators, Saleh and even Mike McDaniel to the Dolphins and Jets respectively, and I was looking at that and be like, man, I really wanted Saleh as our head coach, or I really wanted the offensive firepower and innovation of Mike McDaniel for the Lions. Now, I'm thankful, and again, I think most Lions fans would agree with me that we didn't have Danny Campbell on our radar. He was probably our 10th, in that coaching search. He was probably our 10th, if not unknown potential coaching addition at the time. A lot of people didn't even know who Dan Campbell was until he got hired. But even with that being said, Dan Campbell has brought an amazing level of stability to this organization. Not only that, Brad Holmes is an absolute amazing drafter. He could bring players in who can be incredibly versatile, who are fast, who are good, who are strong, who are consistent, especially on offense. But that being said, that sounds like a perfect environment for Mike McDaniel. He's kind of being cast off from his head coaching position with the Dolphins. Not only that, he brings a Shanahan-level innovation of the offensive system to his play calling. We saw very unique ways in the last couple of years. The Miami Dolphins, especially when Tua was not hurt, when he didn't have these concussion issues, we saw him using a ton of pre-snap motions. We saw him utilizing the Achans and the Waddles and the Tyreek Hills in phenomenal ways, even with their own inabilities in their offensive line. I think the Lions have a better offensive line. I think the Lions actually have better weapons than the Miami Dolphins. I would be so interested to see what Mike McDaniel could do with this offensive position group. Now, Jared Goff is not the most versatile quarterback, but he is way smarter and way more shrewd. He's at reading defenses on at the line of scrimmage before the ball is even snapped. He is so much better. He's an elite quarterback in that realm. However, we also, of course, have Amon-Ra, J-Mo, Sam Laporta is going to be coming back, and also Jahmyr Gibbs. Those four weapons in and of themselves, along with Jared Goff and a better offensive line, has got to get Mike McDaniel absolutely pondering whether he should come to Detroit for a couple seasons. Now, there's a couple downsides with the potential of Mike McDaniel. I just alluded to one. I think that this is a guy who wants to be a head coach again. I think this is a guy who's in 2 or 3 years is going to be back on that carousel, and absolutely it could be a downside of hiring him. However, I do think that this guy could unlock the Lions offense to be a 32, 33, 34 point per game type of unit. Just historic numbers with the players that we have. We've got him locked up. Jahmyr Gibbs is the best running back in the NFL. He's absolutely amazing. If we draft another lineman, or if we somehow maybe get another lineman, again, we'll see what happens with Decker. We'll see if Ragnow does make a return after he gets maybe recovered from some of these injuries that came up after he was going to come back, which is a whole thing again. But this is a guy who I'm really looking at. But there's a couple other guys on the radar. But before we get into those other guys, again, let me know what you think down in the comments. Is this tenable? Is this a guy that you want with the Detroit Lions? I think with the coaching staff stability, I think McDaniel and some of his woes, where I think leading an organization, I think when you get him simply on an offensive coordinating role, he could be elite. He could be he's the number one candidate for this, guys, and it's not close for me. But again, a couple other things. We're going to talk a little bit about David Blough here. A couple days ago, we heard that the Lions were reaching out, starting their offensive coordinator search with David Blough. This is a guy who's been with the organization for 3-4 years, in 19 to 22. He's the current assistant coach with the Commanders, but he's a guy who it seems like long-term he wants some head coaching opportunity. Now, the benefits of bringing a guy like David Blough in is that he would have absolute familiarity with the roster, absolute familiarity with the quarterback, which is so important, with the coaching staff, with the front office, with the team. This is it's not quite an internal hire, but this is a guy who has a major history with the Lions and could come in and contribute pretty easily because he wouldn't have too many issues of building new relationships with people. But the one thing I do have maybe some concern with, my brother-in-law brought this one to my attention just a couple days ago, but the one thing that I have hesitations on is I do think that there's a very clear limited ceiling with this sort of offensive coordinator hire. Now, I don't mean anything bad against David Blough, but he is not a proven offensive coordinator. I think John Morton, again, while maybe some success in some different positions, also had some of these issues. If I'm the Lions, I'm not looking right now to hire David Blough unless I am taking the vantage point of wanting a 6 to 8 year offensive coordinator who maybe one day goes off and is a head coach. I just don't know with David Blough. Let me know your thoughts down below. But one also, maybe on the same tier of Mike McDaniel for me, is this guy right here, Todd Monken. We just found out he was let go from the Ravens. He's known very specifically for his balanced attacks and his use of mobile quarterbacks. Now, he really built the system that led Lamar Jackson to be at an MVP level. Is Jared Goff Lamar Jackson? I don't know. He could be next year. No, he's not. He's just not. Sorry, he's not. He's not as mobile. He takes a lot more hits than Lamar Jackson does, or at least he's not scrambling as much as Lamar Jackson does. But Todd Monken has utilized offensive chess pieces really well. In the same way that I talk about Mike McDaniel with the chess pieces of Amon-Ra, J-Mo, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Sam Laporta, I look at this guy right here, and I think absolutely he could bring a massive addition to the Lions offense in the way that he schemes, in the way that he uses versatile players, in the way that he uses, I want to see a guy like this or Mike McDaniel really unlock and utilize J-Mo and Jahmyr Gibbs, who are absolutely in the primes of their careers. However, Todd Monken, maybe some things here. He is definitely a more run-focused offensive coordinator than maybe the pass-heavy attack that we might see out of a guy like McDaniel. But regardless, he uses his wide receivers very efficiently. Now, this last year, it wasn't as efficient as maybe it was in years past, but we did see a resurgence of Rashad Bateman's career, and we did see Zay Flowers, do pretty well under Todd Monken, even with some of the other inabilities on the Ravens offense. But the last one I want to briefly talk about is a name that was going around a lot last year for an offensive coordinator position, but not with the Lions. It's Hank Fraley. Now, maybe just a couple quick ideas here. In 2025, the beginning of January 2025, a lot of people thought Ben Johnson was going to be taking Hank Fraley from the Lions to go be the offensive coordinator of the Bears. Obviously, it didn't happen. But one of the things that I feel and think about this name's being thrown around, so I just want to maybe acknowledge it, is I don't think Hank Fraley should be the Lions offensive next coordinator, or the next Lions offensive coordinator rather. But when I look at this, it's not that I don't like Hank Fraley. I absolutely want Hank Fraley to stay on the Lions coaching staff, but I want this guy to double down on the offensive line this year. I want more consistency on this line. That was a very real weakness for this team this year. We should have had, going into the season, a top 6 unit, top 8 unit. It was middle of the pack, if you'd ask me. Some injuries derailed it, some other things. We had some other issues, but you know what? We really want Hank Fraley to double down on the offensive line and not get consumed with the play calling, not get consumed with constantly working with Jared Goff at a different level. Get Hank Fraley back again to where he could excel. But that being said, there was a couple other names floated around from just rumors and everything, and I'm just not sure any of them are substantiated. I'm not sure we're going to make any other moves. But the one thing I do want to acknowledge that I do think I've already hinted at in this episode, just to conclude here, is that this Lions offensive coordinator position is going to be one of the most coveted positions in the entire NFL. We are going to attract coaches who have been head coach candidates or head coaches previously to come and just be the offensive coordinator of the Lions because of the organizational stability and because of the offensive firepower that the Lions have. For Mike McDaniel, guys, this is a home run situation. He can come in, he can bring his innovation, he can bring his scheme, he can adapt things the Lions are already doing well. He could absolutely rebuild his career as a head coach, as a potential head coach. And in 2 or 3 years, maybe on that 4th year, he could get hired as another head coach and really continue to progress his career. But for right now, the Lions have an amazing situation for any coach to come in. We should be really excited as Lions fans. We should be really hopeful of who this team brings in for this offensive coordinator position, because we're not the same old Lions. We still have every opportunity to go in and win the Super Bowl in the future years. This team is drafting well, is using the cap well. Say what you want about some of the injuries. Regardless, this Lions team is still on the up. We hit a downturn this year, but we're still looking up. It's still going to be good. Hey, but in all of it, my name is Colin. We are the NFC North Guys. If you haven't subscribed to this channel already, do so. Smash that like button. Get this video out to more Lions fans. I hope you have a great day. God bless. Go Lions.